In Spokane, Washington. He's a third-year undergraduate student at the UW studying Earth and Space Sciences, astronomy, and physics. During his time at the UW, he's been involved in undergraduate research and outreach activities, among many other things. Please welcome Tyler Valentine.
What's up, y'all? All right. Throughout my entire life, I've been fascinated with science, but as a black student that spent middle school and high school straddling the poverty line, becoming a scientist seemed like something utterly out of reach. All of the scientists and engineers that you learn about in school are painted as these heroic and godlike figures with seemingly unattainable qualities. But now that I've gone through a few years of schooling and interned in the industry for a little bit, I can tell you something a lot of scientists and engineers might not want you to know. They aren't special at all. There is no special attribute or quality that scientists and engineers have that the average person lacks. All that it takes to be a scientist or engineer is curiosity, access to resources, and belief in yourself. But if that's true, then why are so many people of color lost along the path to becoming a scientist or engineer? If that's true, then why do I work in a company where only 2% of the employees are black, and that 2% is me? Do people of color lack curiosity? Do we lack access to resources? Do we not believe in ourselves? Or is there something more than all of that? I want to walk you through each one of those. Now, it turns out that what makes each and every one of us human is our shared sense of curiosity and wonder. It's something that we were born with, but it's something that we can very easily lose touch with. Every single parent wants to give their child the best possible life, but in many families, parents aren't sure how to encourage their curiosity. And in many communities, young people of color don't have the privilege of exploring their curiosity in the world around them in their free time, as it's occupied with other work and worries. Many young people of color are too busy working to help support their families. They're too busy worrying about if or when their families might be deported across an artificial border. They're too busy worrying about getting arrested or killed by the police to even think about pursuing STEM. Now, if we lack encouragement at home and we don't have the privilege of exploring it on our own, then it falls on schools to be a source of encouragement. However, due to implicit bias, teachers are less likely to encourage and more likely to punish black and brown students than their white peers. And beyond that, there are enormous flaws in our country's education system that deny opportunities in countless underrepresented communities. And all of those flaws stem from the horrendous funding system constructed for our schools. This country has decided to fund schools in a large portion of the property taxes in the communities surrounding the schools. However, in low-income communities, families are far less likely to own homes, there are fewer businesses, and as a result, schools have significantly less funding than middle and upper-class communities. Now, this has the potential to affect almost anyone in the United States, but it predominantly affects underrepresented people. Post-emancipation, banks were able to systematically deny home loans to black and brown folk across the nation. And even if a person of color was able to own a home, the property value would sharply decrease due to their undesirable presence. The civil rights movement was able to end segregation by law, but de facto segregation still exists in our country. And as a result, we continue to suffer the consequences of a system that we did not create. And all of these and other struggles increase the likelihood that people of color will struggle with mental health problems. Now, the most common mental struggle that people of color deal with is our inability to believe in ourselves. Even for those of us who are fortunate enough to make it into and beyond college, we continuously struggle with imposter syndrome, the seemingly unshakable belief that we aren't supposed to be here, regardless of how hard we work or how much we achieve. This syndrome is magnified by microaggressions and when our white classmates and coworkers insinuate that we are only here because of affirmative action or we're simply a diversity hire. Imposter syndrome is like a second shadow that stalks us from one school or company to the next, feeding off representation in the media. The media has no problem showcasing white male scientists, but struggles to represent people of color as anything but criminals. The new Jim Crow feeds off of this representation to perpetuate its social control of black Americans and hides itself behind the so-called war on drugs. This system of mass incarceration has made it so that black men in this country are twice as likely to end up with a felony on their record than with a bachelor's degree on their resume. Until Black Lives Matter and the new Jim Crow is dismantled piece by piece, we can't hope to see any meaningful change in the racial or ethnic makeup of our scientists or engineers. And any change that does happen or has happened is purely superficial and is done in an effort to obscure the systems of racism and social control that continue to prevail in the United States and afford white Americans innumerable privileges. Now, all of you have come out today because you believe, as do I, that scientific and technological progress is the hallmark of modern society and that it must continue to advance and evolve. However, for that advancement and evolution to occur, the narrative needs to change. The struggles I have described are not limited to people of color, but are experienced by immigrants, transgender, and queer folk, as well as women. And I urge each of you to return to your school, your lab, or your workplace and change the way you and those around you think about scientists and engineers. The era of the cis, hetero, white male scientist is over. And it is time for all of us to make a conscious effort to be more inclusive of people from all communities and backgrounds. Thank you.